All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone. Happy Thursday, almost Friday. We're going to be talking about creative profiles today, and it doesn't matter whether you're using Lightroom Classic, or Photoshop. You can take advantage of these creative profiles, provided you're using the current version of those applications. So profiles, for those of you who are new, and before I do that, let me give some shout outs here. NG Photography, thanks for being here. DJ Cahoots, thanks for being here as well. And the folks over on Facebook who I haven't seen any names fly up. Oh, there's Victoria. Folks over on Facebook, thanks for being here as well. Colleen, all the way from South Africa. Valder, Rudy, thanks for being here. And is that See Kimbro Photos, welcome as well. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and dive into what I mean by creative profiles and why you should take advantage of them. I'm going to start off in Lightroom. I'm actually going to use the newer cloud version, but like I said, it doesn't matter whether you're using Classic or Lightroom. Lightroom Classic or Lightroom, it doesn't matter. They work in both, and of course they work in Photoshop. So let me switch over to the computer. I've got just a few sample images here in my Lightroom album, which the last 3 were taken last week on vacation. And I'm going to bring up one of those, this one with the birds flying, and talk about what I mean by the profiles. All right, Steve, also welcome all the way from New Zealand. All right, let's double click on this photo, and let's go over to the editing tab. And in the editing tab, I use profiles all the time. The problem is I'm just using, for the most part, the raw profiles. And what I mean by raw profiles, these are the raw profiles. Adobe Color, which is the new default profile. Adobe Landscape, Adobe Portrait, Adobe Standard version 2, and Adobe Vivid. Those are all profiles that you would get if you're working with a raw file. If you're not working with a raw file, you won't see these. You'll see Adobe Color, and you can use anything else besides that. So I typically use these as my starting point for editing, and then I go in and use all the other sliders the way I always do. But I was reminded today, I was reminded yesterday when someone, if anyone's watching, I think it was either Deb or Katrina from the Rock That group, was asking me about shooting in black and white. But when she brought the raw images in, they came in color. And I explained to her, well, raw means raw. So when you're shooting black and white on a camera today, it really is just applying a look to the photo. When you bring it in raw, that look doesn't come over as a raw component because it's raw. Meaning raw means give me what came from the sensor, not what the camera applied to it. And I basically explained to her that if you're going to make a black and white, you should probably do that in post-production anyway. It's great to be able to shoot in black and white and share it immediately off your camera if that's what you want to do. But if you're actually going to make a black and white, probably best to do that in Lightroom or Photoshop. And then that's when I was reminded, oh yeah, that would be really easy to do with the black and white profiles. So there are all kinds of profiles besides these 4 or 5 that are here just for raw files to get started. There are ones that are used more for finishing looks on your photos as well. So, like I said, I always use, I'm either using Landscape, Portrait, or Vivid to get started. And then I'll go in and make any other adjustments that I normally would make. But if you're just doing that, you're missing out on the creativity aspect of profiles. So how do I get to the other ones? How do I get to the ones that aren't just for raw files? How do I get to the ones for black and white, for applying different colors, for applying different looks, for more of a creative look to my image? Well, this little browser icon with the 4 or 3 squares and a magnifying glass, that takes you into the profile browser, which I have all the raw ones as my favorites. But then you've got all the categories down here. You've got artistic, you've got black and white, you've got modern, and you've got vintage. And this is where you can get creative with the looks of your photo. You typically would do these looks after adjusting, but it really doesn't matter because what you apply as a profile has no bearing on the sliders that you adjust for brighten or for exposure, for contrast, for highlights, shadows, any of that. None of that gets moved. You're basically applying a profile that has nothing to do with adjustments. It's just the look of the image. So so what I mean by that is if you went through and made all your adjustments first and then applied a profile, it doesn't touch your adjustments. If you apply a profile first and then go adjust after the fact, it doesn't mess with the profile. They are completely independent of each other, and both can be undone or reset or changed at any given time without impacting other than the look of the other. So for example, if I go to artistic, well, maybe I wanted a more purple sky. Maybe I wanted a more blue sky. Maybe I wanted, and these are just named artistic 1, artistic 2, 3, 4, 5. So as you hover over each one, you can kind of see the look that it's going to give you. Now, again, I'm not saying these are perfect for every single photo, but I'm kind of digging artistic 4 on this photo. That's without it. That's with it. So it's making my sky a little bluer. I kind of like that. That would be cool. So if I just click on it, that applies that profile. And you'll notice that when you click on the actual profile versus just hovering over it, you get an amount slider. So if maybe you applied a profile and it's too much of that look and you want to tone it down a little bit, you have an amount of all the way from 0, meaning don't apply it at all, to just apply it a little bit, to really overdo it. Take it all the way up to 200. So you start at 100 in the middle, which means it's applied it at 100% strength. You can go higher than 100% strength, or you can go lower than 100% strength. So if 100 wasn't enough, you wanted to crank up that blue just a little bit more, you can crank it up a little bit more. If you really like that effect, you can also just click the little star and add it to your favorites. So your favorites category is what shows up by default. And now artistic 4 is in my favorites because maybe that's one I want to use all the time. So we can also look at black and white. Lloyd saying, thanks, Terry. I love learning more about Lightroom CC. Yep. And actually, it's no longer Lightroom CC. It's just Lightroom or Lightroom Classic. We took the CCs off our product names as part of our branding. All right, so with that said, what if I want to try black and whites? And this is the thing I love about profiles mostly, or the thing I love most, is that I can sit here all day and drag sliders around on black and whites to try and get them to look the way I want. Nothing beats just hovering over until you see the one you want, or the one that's mostly the one you want, and then adjusting from there. So I love, love, love the black and white profile. So I think it was Deb. Deb, if you're watching, this is what I meant by doing it in post, because you'll see the kind of black and white you want, and then you can go from there. So maybe I like that one. Maybe I like this one. It's less dark. Maybe I want this one. It's more dark in the clouds. And there are all kinds of ones with different filters. There's a blue filter, there's a green filter. And what that means is even though it's black and white, it's adjusting the blues, the yellows, the greens, the orange, the reds in the image. So since that image had a lot of blue in it, that one's adjusting the blue. Since that one has some green in it, it's adjusting the green. And so you're going to get different looks based on this. Now, if I click on one of these, will I also get an amount slider? This is like kind of a more highly contrasted version, number 9 there. So let's go to number 9. Well, more black and white or less black and white is still black and white. It's just, again, applying the amount of the filter. So the filter, or I shouldn't say filter, the profile. The profile with less means that it's not as contrasty as it was. It's kind of dull in this look. If I apply more, it gets really contrasty and also makes my sky too dark. I don't like it that way. So even on a black and white, you can play with the amount slider to get more or less of the look you're looking for. And if you, again, decide at any given time, man, I really wish that was back in color, no problem. Just go back to your profiles and choose the color one that you like, or just switch to a different profile. So this is not permanent. These are not destructive filters. They're not applying them, then you're stuck with it. They're profiles that you can change at any given time. So if I go back to the browser, that was black and white. I have modern ones as well, so I can hover over these modern ones. So that one gives like a nice vignette. That one kind of dulls it a little bit. Modern 4, and again, I'm just hovering over the ones until, I kind of like that one. It's kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Not dual tone, but a split tone, where it's still giving me some color, but it's also giving me less of that color. So I like Modern 5 for this. Modern 6, nope. 7, nope. And again, no guarantee that you're going to like them all, but Modern 1 would probably be the one I would go for if I were looking for a modern look to this photo. So again, I can click Modern 1 and say less of Modern 1 or more of Modern 1. If I really want to make it really punchy with the color, I can do that with Modern 1. So let's twirl Modern up, and Vintage, another one of my favorite categories. You can get that old style, old school look with profiles. And for this particular photo, I'm not really seeing a lot in Vintage that I would use. Nah, these are all kind of dull. I probably wouldn't use Vintage on this photo. So in this photo, I would either use one of the modern ones, the black and white ones, or the artistic ones. And again, Artistic 4 was my favorite for this photo. And for modern, I think it was Modern 1 was my favorite for this photo because I really like them punchy like that. And for black and white, I really hadn't decided on one. Let's see, maybe, nope, not that one. Nope, nope, nope. I'd probably go with, it's hard to tell. I'd go with number 1 for this photo. And then I might increase the amount just a little bit. Yeah, I'd probably go for that one. If I were making this photo black and white, I'd use that one. All right, so that's how to do it in Lightroom. And again, you are at any given time able to go back and change it. Also works great for travel photos. So for example, if we quickly go in and we wanted to make this a black and white, we can go into the black and white category if you didn't already make a favorite. And look at these. These look awesome in black and white. The architectural photos, the building here, Freedom Tower, plays around with the different sky looks in black and white. I kind of like that one. Actually, I kind of like number 1 on this one too. All right, so maybe number 1 is going to be a favorite. Let's mark that as a favorite. And profiles are awesome. Okay, so that's how you would do it in Lightroom. And Lightroom Classic would be very much the same. You go into the Develop module, you have the profiles at the top, just like you do here in Lightroom, and you would make you'd have the same choices. How do I do it in Photoshop? All right, so let's switch over to Photoshop, and let's grab a photo. So you'd have your photo open, and it's like, well, where are the profiles in Photoshop? Well, Photoshop and Lightroom share the same technology in Camera Raw. So Photoshop uses Camera Raw, Lightroom uses Develop or Editing, and they're both based on the Camera Raw technology. So if I wanted to do it here, I would either A, open up a RAW file, which will take me to the Camera Raw dialog box anyway, or if it wasn't a RAW file or I had the image already open, then I would use the Camera Raw filter. Now, to make the Camera Raw filter non-destructive, you also want to go up to your filter menu first, come down to Convert for Smart Filters. That will turn this into like a smart object layer. And now you can apply the Camera Raw filter all you want and undo it, change it, go back, make changes anytime you want without permanently adjusting this image. So again, we go to Filter, Camera Raw filter in Photoshop, and in the Camera Raw filter in Photoshop, those are the same profiles. Now, since this is not a raw image, this is what I meant. I don't get that landscape, Adobe Vivid, portrait. Those were all raw profiles. Since this is not a raw image, it's a JPEG, I don't get those. But I do get browse or clicking the same icon to get those same artistic looks that we saw before. So I can play around with these different ones. I kind of like, since it's a person, I wouldn't want to make his skin too purple. So I would probably use Artistic 2. Artistic 4 looks pretty good. And you even see a preview before you hover over it. You see a smaller preview down here. And really, it's a matter of picking how do you want the rest of the image looking if you keep the skin tone looking good. So that's more of a blue look. That's more of a beige or orange look. This is even more of a beige or orange look. That's even more. So it's really how do you want the rest of the image looking. I kind of like artistic number 2 for this one, but that would be my choice. All right, now artistic number 2 was what I chose for that photo. If I were using artistic, let's try black and white. Got some different contrast here with black and white. That's kind of blowing out the beach and the water too much for my taste. That looks pretty good. That's making him too dark. That would be okay. I think I'm going to like number 2 or number 7 the best. 7 looks pretty good. 8, 9 looks pretty good. So it's only the ones on the left. Just kidding. The blue filter. So then we have all the different color filters here. The yellow filter looks pretty good. So I would probably go with something like number 7 and then see what the amount would do to that. That's less. That's more. Yeah, see, you go too far with more, it starts wrecking the sky over here, so I wouldn't go that far with it. Maybe something right around there. And that would be my choice for black and white. All right, let's keep going. Let's close those. Oh, I didn't mean to close it all the way. My bad. Go back. I meant to twirl that up. There we go. And let's go back to color. There we go. And here we are. So vintage. Oh, we forgot modern. So the modern ones here as well. I kind of like that modern one. I like this modern one. I really like this modern one. So I'd probably use modern 8 on this photo if I were using the modern filters. Let's try modern 8. That's too much. That's too little. I kind of like it right where it was, right around 100. Yeah, something like that. The rest are okay. I could go with modern or vintage. I'm sorry. I can go, am I a modern or vintage? Oh, I twirl down both. That's why. So for modern, I'd pick whichever one I was on. Number 6 or number 2 or number 4. Those are all good. All right, last but not least, vintage. And in this particular case, I love vintage 8. Vintage 8 has a very nice tone to it. So right off the bat, without even going any further, vintage 8 for this photo. Look at how it makes this color in the skin pop. Look at how it kind of even gives him like a glow around the body. I would definitely choose vintage 8 for this photo without hesitation. And tone it up or tone it down a bit, maybe up just a little bit more. So when you are stuck in your, I want to enhance this photo, I kind of don't know which sliders to try a profile, because you get a preview right off the bat to show you what it's going to look like, and you have an amount slider to go from there. And once again, once you're done with your profile, you still have all the rest of your adjustments to make. This didn't finish your image necessarily. So if you want to go in and say, well, I think the highlights in this image are still too bright, let me tone those down a bit. I would love to see a little bit more contrast in this image. So let me bring that up a little bit. Maybe the exposure is a little bit too bright for this image. Let me tone it down. Let me add a little dehaze to kind of tone down the sun a bit. You can still do all of those things with the profile intact. And if I want to change the profile, vintage 8 is still there. I can pull down, go to browse, and change it to whatever I wanted to change it to, and it does not impact the sliders that I did. Let's add a little bit of vibrance to it. That's too much. A little bit, and there we go. So play with your profiles, use your profiles, try your profiles. Don't get just caught up in using the raw ones. The raw ones are great as starting points, but I really like using them now for when I just want to add that little extra to the photo without having to sit here and play with all the different colors to get what I want. All right, and especially for black and white. So Jamie, Amber, thanks for being here as well. And Yep. Colleen says, been there, done that. It's so cool to play around with your images like this. And again, I kind of like doing it after I've made all the other adjustments, because I look at these as, for the artistic ones, as in black and white ones, as more of a finishing technique. So I usually would apply those after, whereas the raw ones I usually apply first. Open the image up, vivid, portrait, landscape, right off the bat, then go make the adjustments. But your workflow is your workflow. You do it any way that works best for you. So with that said, I hope you got something out of using, oh no, he's sitting on top of my head. Let's move him over. Hope you got something out of using profiles, and don't forget to use the artistic and black and white and vintage to maybe give that photo that little extra that you weren't going to give it if you were just going to make the adjustments and close it. All right. So with that said, Raul, yes, you are late because we're about to wrap things up and call it a day. You can always go back and watch the replay. And so thanks for those of you who are here live, and thanks for those of you who are watching this on the replay. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.